Hey, everybody, here we are again, episode 261 of the Near Memo. And today we are joined by Craig Burton from the greater Bangkok metropolitan area in Thailand. And of course, the effervescent Mike Blumenthal, as always, is here with me. Today, in our sort of ongoing quest to discover how to deal with all the changes that Google is implementing, and they seem to just keep coming and coming and coming, which is exciting and also kind of exhausting in a certain way. We're going to be talking about lists. So Craig discovered a bunch of new lists, or the sort of intensification of a list strategy that Google was implementing around maps. And we are going to be sort of unpacking that today. It's pretty interesting, and it points to a number of things that Google is trying to do with maps, and we'll talk through that and what the implications are for marketers. So welcome, Craig. That was kind of a lengthy interview, but welcome, Craig. How are you doing this
Hello.
evening from Bangkok, Thailand?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Very honored to be here. Everything's good. It's the opposite time of day for us, isn't it? You're in the morning. I'm heading to bed.
And Mike is somewhere in between.
I mean, it's 10:30 here, but it's still early morning from my point of view.
So Craig, just give us just a little bit of context about what you do and what your focus is, and then we can jump into the conversation.
Okay. Well, I'm as you mentioned, I live in Thailand, but I'm originally from the UK. If you can tell by my accent, I've been here for about 20 years. I've got a sales and marketing background, but I fully transferred over into marketing, digital marketing, about 15 years ago, with a focus on local SEO. I've been through various agencies and run different agencies, but the highlight of my career, if you will, was head of the digital platform for Michelin in Southeast Asia, where we really pushed and did really well with local SEO for the Tyre Plus brand. At the moment
Could I interrupt real quickly? Do you mind telling the story about the permissions you were given as a local SEO in that context? I think our listeners would find it fascinating.
Okay, yeah. So there was one of the major things that we did when originally setting up is for Tyre Plus is a lot of the businesses are very old legacy mom and pop type businesses, and their business profiles were on maps historically from way back when Google used to add them automatically. So a lot of them had these really old long names, and one of the first things that we wanted to do was clean up the naming convention. So we had lots of trouble trying to speak to the dealers directly. A lot of them didn't speak English. And one of our contacts in France got Google to give me a personal email address that I could do anything on maps with. So I could literally
So you were authorized
to
change the names to the corporate branding that you wanted for these independent businesses. So Joe's trading company became what?
Overnight.
Joe's Michelin Tire store, or became Michelin Tire?
Yeah, no, every store was the Tyre Plus and then the location. So they all went from... Yeah. So Michelin themselves are not a tire seller; they're a manufacturer. So they do all their selling through networks. The main one being Tyre Plus. Yeah.
So you were individually allowed to go in and change all these names.
So all these locations that had never spoke to me, had no idea what they were. They woke up with an optimized page. Yeah.
So how did they react to that? How did they react to that? You just did that without informing them, I assume.
No, it was all, this didn't happen overnight. It was after many, many months of trying, and it was failing and trying to literally get, because they'd have key account managers that would go to see the dealers and try to explain it to them. It was just taking too long, The thing was, a lot of the dealers came on board and were very happy about it. Some of the dealers, not so much, because they wanted their mum and pop shop name that they'd had for 50 years, But, and I've got the evidence, over the whole network, this is Malaysia, in 1 month, they saw a 45% visibility increase across the network just by changing their name, because it turned individual locations into an authority overnight. All these individual places instantly became the same. entity.
So let's talk about the sort of why we're here talking today. What you wrote a blog post that Darren Shaw commented on LinkedIn, or there was a discussion of a blog post and Darren talked about it, and I saw it that way, and I thought, oh, this is very interesting, and we should talk about it in more detail. Tell us about what your discovery was and what lists you were sort of unearthing here, just as a broad matter, and then we'll show a kind of a demo of what those look like.
Okay, well, it was my envy not having Ask Maps. I tried to recreate it using a Google demo. And when I started seeing the locations, I just randomly found the hack that I think Mike is going to show us, where you could generate or have these lists appear. And I think most people didn't realize that the key was that you have to save them, because a lot of them appear and disappear. Some of them appear at certain times of day. Some are very, very random. But when you start collecting them, then you start, seeing patterns. And it was my initial surprise, because I'd never seen them, didn't know what they were. When I was messaging people, I was getting the same response back. Nobody knew what they were.
What kinds of queries were you using to generate them, just out of curiosity?
No, I was testing back. So when I found the lists, I couldn't understand why they were on there. Some of the restaurants make no, normal sense under what we would say was an optimized profile, or they had a really great website or whatever. But the key was, it was mainly down to UGC review quality, how recent the reviews were, and plus a lot of other things that I think we're probably going to go into a little bit later on. But it was the reverse. I saw the list and then wanted to know why it was showing them.
Okay. Mike is going to take us through a demo that's going to produce a number of these lists, and we can't do any more than that, really.
So as Craig pointed out, you scroll to the area you're interested in this case, Lower Manhattan. Below it, they then show trending results typically. And in that, they show different types of results, but there's the top category is trending on maps. Trending on maps. Do you want to talk about it, Craig?
Yeah, I'll give you the definitions. So the definitions of the main three types of lists are, so you have the top list, okay, which is area mainstays with the most all-time interest in the maps community. Best for a spot that's tried and true. Local gems, emerging favorites in the maps community from the past year. Best for dining like a local. And then you have trending, which is places gaining attention in the maps community this week. Best for discovering the latest hotspot. And then the other categories are publisher lists, brand and editorial lists, and then individual creator lists.
And you were just reading Google definitions. These were Google statements about
the last three are my definitions. The first three are Google. So mine are the publisher, brand, and individual. But the official ones are the top, local, and trending.
Okay.
So just a little bit of history. Google has always awarded popular places on maps. In fact, there was a marketing effort in 2009 where they'd send out the little sticker if your business was searched frequently. So this is a long aspect. They're now servicing them visually, or they did starting in late 2024. And it's a combination, I believe. These trending are review quantities during a recent period for the recent trending. And then for the mainstays, it's a long period it's reviews plus probably driving directions. And the mainstays are a longer period, like over a year or so, number of reviews and regular repeat, interactions and visits.
They have all that visitation data. The
Right.
the busyness graph is based on Android footfall, foot traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And what they can steal from iPhone users.
Yeah. With non-consensual tracking. Well, do you want to show the more on here? Yeah. So these are some.
Yeah. So these are the curated lists. So the curated lists come from either well-known publishing resources like the New York Times or whatever, or local guides that are specialists in topics and create their own specialists in reviewing certain types of restaurants and create their own list. This is Sister Smacking, a local guide who has a top New York pizza listings, the ultimate Manhattan food listings. But then we go to the 25 best restaurants in New York, which is a curated list from the Infatuation, which is a restaurant, online restaurant. It's in New York
Right.
and
They
one
own
other
they
cities.
they own Zagat, I believe.
Right. And then there's Lower Manhattan local gems. I don't. So this looks like
Save.
it's a public curated list with 15 results. So again, just another list. Craig pointed out that it's sort of random. I think what's on here and what shows in this list, the long, detailed, boring business owner description shows, right? But they always show you where this is also mentioned,
The
what curated list it's on.
citations, right? The
Right, the
citations.
citations.
9 times out of 10, you'll find quite a strong citation.
Right. From a reputed source that does regular restaurant reviews in this case.
So, Craig, you identified 6 types of lists, but then there are also Gemini curated lists. Mike, are you able to generate that?
Yeah, I can get there. I believe if I can do a search somehow. Let me cross this out and close this. They don't do a great job of surfacing it easily. Dinner and
Well, this is one of the things that's really interesting is that many of these lists are not easy to find.
So I did a search on Dinner Manhattan. There's a couple sponsored results and then several well-known restaurants like Gramercy Tavern.
And you're
And
seeing
then-
all here, it's reviews being quoted, not citations. Look.
Right. Yes. These are reviews being quoted. Although some of these locations don't have that many reviews. Some have, like Gramercy Tavern has 4,900, whereas the Landing only has 279. But as you scroll down past another ad, you then come to Curated with Gemini lists, which are essentially faceted views of a fairly high level query, dinners. And then they're giving us dinners with rooftop views, a list of Broadway bites, Greenwich Village eats, Lower East Side dining, Upper West Side dining, Brooklyn's best, Queens. So a number of sort of faceted subcategory lists.
And these are sort of quasi people also search for kinds of lists.
Yes. And these are similar to the AI organized categories that we saw in late 2024 in organic search. When you would type cocktails in Manhattan, it would generate carousels, but typically in similar categories, organized horizontally as opposed to here where they're sort of organized vertically, more phone facing. But this technology, this Curated with Gemini, looks very similar to me to those AI organized search results from
Click on one of the
late
click on
2024.
click on Brooklyn's best and let's see what that page looks like. Are we going to get an AI organized page?
It's sponsored.
No, you're getting a standard result, two ads, and then a number of
Right.
listings.
Right. Well, I mean,
and then though you get another curated,
yeah, you get
but with
you
Gemini
get more
lists, right? So we have brunch in Brooklyn, pizza joints in Brooklyn, waterfront dining in Brooklyn, neighborhood bars in Brooklyn.
Turtles all the way down. They can do it endlessly.
They can,
Presumably.
which is one of the points I made in our green room, which is that this is as much about satisfying typical user queries, and people also search, people also ask type of faceted queries, but it also serves Google by creating an endless array of interactions that are possible.
It's the infinite scroll, isn't it?
It is the
It's
infinite
kind of-
scroll down the rabbit hole simultaneously. It's like scrolling all the way down. Poor Alice. She has an iPhone in her hand as she's
kind of. I
falling
mean,
down.
the interesting thing about the infinite scroll, just to digress another moment, is that in the United States, there was a you may or may not have been following the litigation strategy of plaintiffs who are trying to hold different platforms liable for different things, and they've moved from an attack on the content, which is in the United States at least is given immunity, to an attack on the product design. So a product defect litigation strategy like big tobacco, where they say there's something inherently addictive or defective or deficient about the product. And the infinite scroll was one of those features that was found to be addictive and intentionally designed to keep people addicted and engaged with the platform to their own detriment in a Los Angeles, California trial. And there are some things coming up in the U.S. federal courts using some of the same theories. But the infinite scroll has been tagged as a product defect now, at least preliminarily, in the United States.
And in Google's defense here, while you were talking, I was experimenting. Sorry for not paying 100% attention.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
And I found that this rabbit hole is only 3 clicks deep. So we had dinners, Brooklyn, best Brooklyn happy hours, and that was the end of it. So we no longer have a.
So my point is totally moot. My point is totally moot.
But there is another list that also pops up from time to time, and that is, depending on the time, events happening. So that would be another. If you've seen the follow-on, it'll tell you if you're doing the itinerary for a day, it will add lists for events in the area. So you can say, I want to, if you were doing an Ask Matt's result, you could say, I want to go have dinner, and then I want to go to the park, and then I want to go, for a coffee or a walk or whatever. And it will bring up those different places. And I've seen lists, I've not been able to save one, of just the events that are happening in areas.
Right. So Google seems to be Maps has always been a kind of search-based interface where you put in a query, you got a result, and you made a decision on the basis of that. These lists seem to be a lot about discovery, kind of more passive discovery. Let's talk about that for a second. Why do you think Google is doing that? Because it's genuinely helpful, or there's some other something else going on?
Well, I think from the user's point of view, I think they're genuinely helpful. I really do. I've personally discovered some really great restaurants in my area that I would never have heard of. To speculate on what the ulterior motive is, well, as Google is, at the end of the day, it's going to be money orientated at some point. I've already seen lists with embedded sponsored results, so even the lists are getting hijacked. I shared one with you earlier, Greg.
It's more ad inventory in one sense. I'm not entirely cynical about Google. I do think that they are trying to, at least some of the folks internally are trying to create a better user experience or use AI in a productive way. But there is always a companion, largely unacknowledged motivation around monetization, for sure. So this creates more opportunities to show ads and more clicks potentially on those ads, obviously. The curious thing to me here, and I'm a big fan of lists because they do expedite decision making. And that in some sense is what people are trying to get to with AI and get to with Ask Maps, is give me this short, relevant list of choices so I can make a decision more quickly than scrolling and scrolling or searching and searching and searching. So there is a lot of value in them potentially. There seems to be more prominent and less prominent lists here, right? Mike is showing the local vibe, which has got these cards, this sort of horizontal carousel with several cards that are pretty visible, kind of as you scroll up, you see them. But some of the other things are less visible. They're more buried. And what do you think is going on there? Why are some of these things more easily discovered and others less readily visible?
That's a difficult one. I mean, at the moment, obviously, a lot of this is speculation. I'm not going to pretend that
That's all we do here. That's our stock and trade, is speculation.
Yeah. Well, we haven't. I don't think we've cracked any codes. I mean, just in the few weeks that I wrote that blog post, so much has happened in local that it's moving so quickly. I don't really know what the direction is. I remember years ago there used to be quotes about how many experiments Google did in search results per day. People always talk about the big algorithm updates, but actually they're testing hundreds of different result search types a day around the world. They're always testing. I don't really know what the outcome of this is going to be, but I think it's definitely trying to help the end user, trying to be helpful. It does have whiffs of the old Google Plus trying to be more social, because they want people to share these lists. They've made them easier to share compared to the old My Maps lists that they used to have that were you could create your own lists and sort of share them, but not like this. So, I mean, yeah, it's too early to say what I think they're doing, but from a user's perspective, I think it's a good thing.
So let's talk about where the data come from, how these lists get created. I mean, some of them are dynamic, some of them seem to be not dynamic. What's going on with the data behind the scenes? And Mike, you feel free to opine on this stuff as well.
Yeah, I think we need to break the lists out by category. So, the trending, speak to the trending first, Craig, how you think the trending lists are generated.
There's one that is probably the easiest example to explain. The trending always has some comment in reviews about the atmosphere. You'll see every single time there will be very good reviews, not necessarily from a high level, but you'll see the local guide is always a couple of levels up, known for a certain amount of reviews, but you'll always see that word atmosphere, 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 atmosphere. So we're
talking about restaurants here specifically.
It's all restaurants. This is all F&B at the moment. Yeah. All these, I classified them as under the foodie drop. Yeah. They're all restaurants.
So just to clarify something, which I think is important, these lists are not extending into home services and more sort of utilitarian kinds of business categories.
25 most crooked roofers in Houston, that kind of list?
Precisely. Well, no. I mean, seriously. Yahoo is doing something with lists. Nobody's talking about Yahoo, but they've done some interesting stuff with AI and local search around lists. And they do extend it to home services. And think about, Yelp has curated or algorithmically put together top 10 lists for every single category that they operate. And those have started to appear or have been appearing in AI mode and in other AI, ChatGPT and other AI contexts. So those kinds of lists have broad application. I mean, think about, you need a plumber. If you could get to the 10 best plumbers or the 5 best plumbers in your area very quickly without vetting them and doing the searches and doing that would be quite useful. But right now, in this context that we're talking about, these seem to be exclusively about restaurants and probably hotels. There's some broader, some adjacent stuff, I would imagine.
That would be the logical one next, I imagine, would be accommodation, yeah.
Right. So just to summarize, on the trending, from my point of view, it's a short-term view of highly active locations that are perhaps getting more foot traffic and or more reviews, and the reviews are expressing certain sentiments. That's on the trending. The similar category was, what did you call it, old standbys or something? Or long-term good bets?
Top list?
The top list is the one that they say is the mainstays. They're the mainstays.
So I believe that this is a similar calculation, but over a much longer period of time, right? So steady foot traffic, steady brand searches, steady reviews, positive reviews over a much longer period. Typically, I think I saw them once refer to it over the past year in one of their UIs. So these are very short term. The trending are very short term, week, 2 weeks, and those are probably similar, but over longer haul. So some of the other lists you want to speak to?
Well, we've seen actually one of the lists that we spoke about was an influencer in the US who appears to have done a blog with Google, the Lupe lists that we discussed.
She's British. You're talking about Dua Lipa? Or she's
probably more British than me. I mean, I've been back there 3 times in 20 years.
She may not originally be British, but I think she's based in the UK.
Most of her places were America, but yeah, she had places from all over the place. But it surprised me that I couldn't figure out why she'd done it. I mean, why she had all these lists, because she doesn't seem to be a food blogger. But as you say, she's an influencer, and it was actually Google made a blog about her with her lists in it.
Well, they're trying to promote this. And she's a popular singer, so they're using it to build awareness. even though they are not making it easy to discover these lists.
No, they're hidden.
Trying
They're
to
hidden.
build awareness.
Some
Yeah,
of
so
them only appear at certain times of day, like lunchtime picks, evening options. I've seen a few, and you got to think, where are they being stored? Because you can't save those ones.
And the Gemini gems is buried. If you under the dinner search we did, it was buried 10 or 12 results deep.
You're talking about the Gemini curated list.
Gemini curated lists, which are like the AI informed search results.
Right.
They're very buried. And clearly that's a test, because if people find them, Google can then see, but they're not highlighted. The problem between all of the tests and all of the things Maps is trying to do is, and all of the interfaces, like when we were discussing this in the green room, it was hard to even communicate where certain of these features showed or how to get to them, which
Indeed.
I think is a real problem with Map.
Yeah, but I think, aren't they wanting us not to use the interface at all? They just want us to talk to it eventually, don't they? I think that's
don't know what they want. They just, besides advertising revenue. But
so the best thing about Maps right now, in my opinion, is Ask Maps, because it's very simple. You have a great deal of control. You ask a question, you can put in a 30, 40, 50 word query, and you get a result, and it's very responsive to your specific intent or specific need. And this other stuff that we're talking about, while lists in the abstract are quite helpful, the interface and the way in which all these components are interacting is quite cluttered.
horrible.
And it's very analogous to Microsoft Excel in a certain way. Most people are going to use some very top layer of functionality, and then
ask Claude to do the rest.
Right. And then it goes, well, that's a new development. Then it goes 16 levels deep. There's so much stuff here. I mean, there's so much information, so much density here that most people don't know about and will never discover. Google could simplify all this dramatically. I mean, the lists are great when they're visible and easy to get to, but that's not.
So to demonstrate your point, I created an Ask Maps query, trending restaurants in Manhattan that have been open a short time, but show on a number of lists and located in Chelsea. Let's just see what we get with that query, right? So 3 expeditions, pinpointing 10 places across the Chelsea universe, putting it all together. And we have Chelsea as a hotspot, and then we're starting South Indian innovation. We get a number of results, much cleaner, quicker list that meets my specific criteria. I agree with you totally that this is a much better interface. No ads either.
Can I just say where the gap is, though, are those the same places you would see in the traditional SERPs? And that's where I'm seeing they're not. And that is the scary part.
If I go and do a search, let's do a search for Indian restaurants in Chelsea. So here we have South Indian Innovation at Kiddalum. So let's do Indian restaurant in Chelsea and see what we get.
It's going to be different. It's a different group.
It's going to be different because I asked for newly opened ones, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's not going to show there, but
here, curated with Gemini.
Curated with Gemini, South Indian, it's not there even, right? So no, you're right. So let's go in and see more. So it's not even there. So it's pretty far down. I'm not finding it. So it's a different answer. I mean, which demonstrates both your point about it being probably personalized to something I've done in the past and or probabilistic because it's an AI answer, whereas these are seem to be a little more deterministic.
Mm.
So let's kind of just briefly get into where is the data? What's the data behind these? What are the elements? What are the sort of ranking factors, if you will, that are producing these lists? Reviews clearly are one of them. What else is going into this?
Well, as we mentioned,
influencer mentions,
local guide lists,
and they were saying a lot of it is based on really just the UGC, what people are saying. Yeah, not only in reviews, but in posts and photos. So when people are tagging, because people now, I'm pushing more and more people not to leave reviews, but to add just like photos or videos when they visit places. We lost Greg.
And
No,
and
Greg's here.
and what about sort of outside material? So editorial content, social media, blog posts. To what degree are those factoring in here at all?
Well, we're not seeing what I haven't seen is probably easier to tell you. I haven't seen anything from the likes of YouTube, TikTok, or Reddit, which is a lot of
Except
talking
those are
points.
showing up. Those show up on the Google Business Profile now sometimes.
Really?
Okay.
I've not seen that.
They're
Yeah.
starting to. So it could be that they're just starting to integrate that into the output because
It's the next logical step, if you ask me. It seems like it's the way it's going for SEO in general, isn't it? They're looking at all the different touch points and trying to get as much evidence on the location or the business or the product as possible from as many different touch points.
And I would suggest, Greg, that things like brand queries are playing a role. They've always played a role in local, but brand queries, perhaps, how busy are they? Whether there's a common, uptick in traffic and driving directions all seem to play roles historically. And I think currently in driving these. So it's a multifaceted number of inputs. I believe that Google are also buying credit card data so they know they can get a reasonable sense of actual purchases.
They've had credit card data for a long time from MasterCard and maybe all of the providers. Historically, Google has been a Google Maps, not Google Search, but Google Maps has been a tool that people have used for, broadly speaking, two kinds of queries: brand queries, restaurant name, business name, and best, category near me or best category. Those have been the kinds of queries that people have primarily done on Google Maps, and Ask Maps and now these lists, kind of broaden the use cases pretty dramatically, which is kind of interesting and probably worth a discussion, independent discussion. But let's get into sort of the tactical stuff. What should, there's a lot of new advice about managing your Google Business Profile, or at least your attitude toward your Google Business Profile. It's not set it and forget it. It's something you have to curate, manage, think of as a living breathing thing. What are the tactical implications here? I mean, Craig, you spoke about evidence optimization versus kind of a more traditional approach. To talk about that.
Okay, so the term evidence optimization came out of just saying that traditionally an agency would set up a business profile page once. It might then set them posts and give them a review strategy for them to work on. But now there's an extra layer of the evidence behind the answers. So we're seeing that Google is looking elsewhere for evidence to provide the right answer for the right query. So I think where we need to start is you've got to look for gaps in your outward profile. I mean, not just in your profile, but in your reviews, in your Q&A, any way you can plug gaps in Google's understanding, not just your profile now. I think going to be where people will win from this, if that makes sense.
So how do you do that? How do you identify the gaps?
Well, I would start by having a look at what's missing. So, maybe just do a self-audit. If you're a restaurant, I would look to see if you're in any of these lists and see why. And I would gamble that most of the times it would be specific things missing from reviews or review frequency, or as we're seeing here, that they're not getting mentioned in publications that are talking about their competitors instead. I don't know if that's going to turn into a new type of outreach for blogs and things like that. I'm not really sure, but at the moment, I would start on yourselves and looking at what gaps are in your own messaging.
You mentioned just real quickly as a piece of content, maybe that would play into this. There was an example of a Lufthansa blog that made it into one of these lists, or that was cited in one of these lists.
Yeah, again, I don't know why Google was bringing that up as a trusted source. After finding the one we were mentioning earlier, I'll probably dig through and see if Google also posted that in a blog. There's so many anomalies, and every different country seems to have different lists in different states. Surprisingly, places in the UK are well behind Thailand, and I don't know if that has anything to do with how Ask Maps has been rolled out, but you'll see there's some prominent towns in the UK that only have lists with 1 or 2 locations, and then you'll go back a week later and it's grown to 5 or 10, and I've seen them growing over the weeks. So it's an organic thing. To say I know where things are coming from, I can't right now. It's quite baffling in some cases, but there are clues.
So
the clues.
Go ahead. No, finish.
No, say there's clues. The clues are in what people are talking about. So that is the key. People have to be talking about you, either on your profile, in your reviews, on a blog post, on somewhere else, but people have to be talking about you.
So there's a bunch of advice now. There's a whole debate about, is AI optimization just an extension of SEO? Is it a different discipline? We don't need to reproduce that here, but there's a number of recommendations that are being made. Review diversification, get reviews on more profiles, digital PR, editorial mentions, and so on and so forth. All of these things now are part of an expanded list of best practices for AI optimization, with SEO as sort of the core discipline. And would, in your view, I can't formulate the sentence here, not enough coffee. If you are going about good local SEO and doing these expanded best practices, review diversification, et cetera, does that cover you for these lists? Should you just not focus on lists and do all these best practices now for AI, and that's enough? Or do you need to do something specific for these lists? And should you?
The main thing that I see more than anything, honestly, is that most businesses, or a lot of businesses, still don't even do anything on their business profile.
Well, they're mostly unclaimed. The majority of businesses have not claimed them. Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking to people like us that are trying to take it up levels, then it's going to be tactics. But still, at ground level, most businesses are still not doing anything. So I would just say start with the basics, get your profile optimized, tick every box, ask customers for reviews. I know you're not supposed to, but you can, and it's a little bit cheeky, but why not? And be proactive for your profile if you're looking at doing it for yourself. But if you're an agency, then I would start looking at planning out all kinds of different ways of reaching out to publications and getting my business named in lists. It depends on your budget and what your goals are, I suppose.
Quick point that we've neglected to cover: multi-location businesses. So right now, these lists are primarily about restaurants. And what we were talking about prior to starting the recording is that multi-location brands, chains as they would be called in the United States, or franchise locations, are not appearing in these lists.
Zero.
What should a multi-location brand or business do or think about in this context?
I wouldn't sweat it, to be honest. I would focus on what you can do. I am literally not seeing
Shake Shack.
any
Shake Shack is there. Shake Shack is there.
You've seen
Although
one?
that's not a top list. Yeah, that's just the AI generated organized page.
I mean, for my advice for multi-location brands is always the same, and that is you've got to actually educate the managers of the stores. You've got to get them on board, and then as an SEO, a lot of your work is done for you, because the actual content and the real quality content always comes directly from the location, not from the agency or the headquarters. It comes from the location.
In this particular restaurant context, nobody is going to be McDonald's is not going to make its way onto any of these lists, but people who are interested in McDonald's are going to be searching for McDonald's near me or closest McDonald's or whatever. The small multi-location brands, the ones that are less widely known, are the ones that are going to suffer here, because Shake Shack might very well be a place that someone who is otherwise a discriminating burger eater might go in New York, but they might not be aware that there's a Shake Shack nearby, or they might not be thinking of Shake Shack. So the absence of Shake Shack on a top list or what have you may operate to the detriment of Shake Shack, because they're not getting as many brand searches as a McDonald's, for example. But that's speculative. So as we kind of wrap up here, to what degree, we talked before in the green room about all these different interfaces that Google has. Google has regular search, they have maps, they have now this Ask Maps experience, they have AI mode, they have Gemini, and probably others that I'm not mentioning. We've talked, Mike and I and others have talked before about trying to unify these experiences in some way. Google is trying to bring certain things together without totally unifying them. What do you think is the future of these lists? I mean, assuming that they sort of continue, or some number of them continue on, do we think we're going to start seeing them in other AI contexts or other Google surfaces, as they say?
Well, I think they're saying that the obvious one that I was saying that I mentioned briefly earlier, but I think it's probably going to move into hospitality, hotels, and things like that. At the moment, they just seem to be rolling out restaurants only, but it makes sense that it would be in hospitality also.
What I'm really asking is should people care about these things because they're going to start showing up in other places like Gemini, AI mode, AI overviews, what have you?
Time will tell, but at the moment, I think I would be, shiny object syndrome. Focus on the basics. There's a lot of talk at the moment in the different terms people want to call. It ultimately is SEO. But the thing is, giving it a different definition can help when you're talking to, especially corporates, to open a conversation and open up new revenue streams. You start giving things different terms, and suddenly different lines of revenue get opened up. So I can see that people are using these different terms, but I don't see it like that. I just see it as SEO still.
Well, most of the
changed.
people listening to this would probably agree with that sentiment. Mike, any
Yeah.
sort of final thoughts on any of these lists or anything we've talked about today?
I've always been curious about Google Maps. It sort of also ran to search from Google's point of view. Restaurants are a low volume ad world for Google. It's
But a high volume query, but
high volume
very
query. So,
Yeah.
I think they see it as a data accumulation point rather than an income point. I can only hope that Ask Maps in the future cleans up these many interfaces and provides a dynamic interface that speaks to directly what the user is looking for, rather than the complexity of the many, many menus and tabs and chiclets and scroll ups and
and
scroll downs
and
and drop
and
downs. It's like
carousels.
Mike, you
carousels,
gotta
So
think.
I
There's
can only
been
hope
one.
that Maps makes it to a true discovery environment that's easy to use.
I just think that they've been good to Maps users for so long, because just think of the amount of training data that all us local guides give Google every day. Photos of food, videos of locations. I mean, if they're trying to build a digital world and based on maps, then we're giving them all the data for free, aren't we?
For
I,
sure.
I
It's a huge competitive advantage of Google, and local data is critically important. I just think they should surface it more cleanly, more effectively. And I think Ask Maps is moving in that direction. These lists
yeah.
might be moving in that direction. We'll see.
I would say that the from a consumer standpoint, not from a developer standpoint, not from a B2B standpoint, the best Google AI experience is Ask Maps. The highest quality and best experience is Ask Maps, in my opinion. And they still can clean up the interface and improve it. But this is where I think they're doing something genuinely useful for the user and leveraging AI in a way that makes it a much better product. I wouldn't say that necessarily about other AI experiences on Google. But go ahead, Craig.
Well, let's see what happens with now. They've just given Gemini in as a business manager, as an app. I haven't got it yet.
That's an important conversation. That's an important conversation and potentially very significant for business owners. And we'll see how that plays out.
Although to be crude, it looks to me like a AI circle jerk. Right. We have Gemini in the basic information resource. We have Gemini divulging the information. We have Gemini updating the information. It's a pretty circular context, synthetic, as it were. So
we're living in a simulation.
Right. Yes. On that conspiratorial note, we'll conclude today's discussion. Craig Burton, thanks very much for joining us. Obviously, there's more to come in this area. As you said, in other contexts, this is a very exciting time to be in local SEO. And, it's changing so fast. It's very hard to keep on top of all of it. Sure. But thanks, everybody, for listening. And, as always, we'll have more guests and more interesting conversations in the future. Tell your friends, click, like and subscribe, all the things that people say. And have a great rest of your week.